Hello, BookTube. This is Nadine, and welcome back to Widely Reading. Thank you for stopping by. And today I'm going to talk about the 3 books that I've read in the first half of April. So I had 2 super funs and 1 great book and 1 DNF. So pretty good track record for 2 weeks. And let me start with the super funs because they are both by the same author, M.T. Anderson. And I had read a middle grade novel of his that I really liked, and so I heard that he had published a novel for adults. So while I was waiting for that to come in at the library, I rechecked out his middle grade book that I had already read. So let me grab it for you, and that is The Assassination of Brangwain Spurge. And this is one of those kid novels that adults can enjoy too. So if you want to read with your kids, I think you'll have a blast as well as your kids reading this one. And you notice there's actually 2 authors here, and one is M.T. Anderson, and the other one is the illustrator Eugene Yelchin, and he's equally billed because the illustrations are a very important part of the book. They're not just illustration; they are really essential part of the text. So what is it about? It is about this little guy, Brangwain Spurge, and he is an elf, and he is a historian also, and he is sent on a diplomatic mission to Goblin Land. I'm not sure exactly what they call it, but he goes there, and he is actually sent, let's see if I can find this for you. Let's see, almost there. Oh, not yet. There we go. So he is sent by being crammed into a barrel and shot by a crossbow. So, but he does make it alive to Goblin Land. Keep forgetting what the name of the place is, but he goes, and all does not go well. There is cultural miscommunication. There is spycraft shenanigans, and there is dangerous double dealing. So, a very juicy story. But as I said about the pictures, they are an important part of the story, more than illustration, and they have their own chapter. Every illustrated section is its own chapter, and I'll show you all of those chapters are called Top Secret Transmissions, and there is a reason for that. And the interesting thing is that the pictures don't always match up with the text. What the text says is going on is not necessarily what the pictures say, and what the pictures say is not the text. So part of the fun is figuring out what is going on here. So I love that book, and while I was reading that one, the adult one came in, the adult M.T. Anderson, and that is Nicked. And this was no pictures, but just as witty and charming as the middle grades book. And this is a medieval heist story, and it actually happened in real life, a version of it anyway, but it's entertainingly fictionalized here and fantasized. And so it's the kind of fantasy that takes place in a real setting, in a real location, but fantastical things happen. So what's the story about? It is 1087, and the city of Bari, the Italian city of Bari in southern Italy, is gripped by a pox, and half the population is sick or dying, and the Benedictine monks are in their monastery, and they're praying day and night for relief. And one of the monks, Brother Nicephorus, he has a vision of Saint Nicholas, and he interprets this vision or dream as meaning that they should get out of the monastery and minister to the sick in their city. But the abbot, who tells the wealthy nobles and politicians about it, they say, oh no, that is not what this means. This is Saint Nicholas asking us to go to Myra in Turkey, where his tomb is, and liberate his bones. And so, and the reason for that is that his bones are rumored to secrete a kind of holy oil that heals the sick. But also, coincidentally, having that really bumps up the pilgrim trade and all the money that comes with that. So they put together a team, I guess you would say, to go and steal the bones. I'm putting this down. And so that team consists of Brother Nicephorus, who really doesn't want to go, and the whole time he's saying, no, this is not what it means, but he has to go. So, and he's a very sweet and not as innocent as you'd think person after the story goes on for a while. And then the other main person there is a relic hunter who, for a fee, is going to join them, and he's kind of a swashbuckling con man kind of guy named Tyan. And then he has a partner that goes with them who is what is his name? His name is It doesn't matter what his name is. So, but what matters is he is a dog-headed man. Yes, he's a man with the head of a dog, and that's just natural because this is kind of a light comic fantasy. So they go with a very in a giant boat with many oars and rowmen, and one thing that's neat about this is it takes place in the decades after the fall of Rome, and so the place is teeming with all kinds of people. There's Normans, and there's Turks, and there's Tartars, and from all over the place. So that also makes it really interesting. But it's, as I said, it's kind of a fantasy, and I saw some not so great reviews of it. There's a lot of glowing reviews, some not so good on Goodreads, and I think people just didn't quite get that it's fantasy. It takes place in a real place, but it's fantasy. So yes, the characters are not going to be deep. They're not going to pour out their heart and soul at any point. But it's fantasy, and it's fun. Okay, and now we are up to book 3, the great book that I read, and it is by one of my favorite authors, and it is Now I Surrender by Alvaro Enrigue, and he is a Mexican writer who lives in the United States, and this is, I think, his 3rd book to be translated into English by Natasha Wimmer, and it was just translated this year. And because Enrique speaks English, is pretty fluent in English, their collaboration is really special, and the writing that comes out of this is fantastic. So this is, I'm going to set this down and put the British cover there, because the British cover is prettier anyway. So this is kind of a how the West was won, or how the West was really won, actually, and specific to the Southwest in the lands that belonged to the Apache, until it was erased, and it is now parts of Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, and then the Mexican states of Chihuahua and Sonora. And so I want to read to you a little section of it, because the writing is so beautiful, and this is also his explanation towards the beginning of why he's writing this book. So here we go. When the Chiricahua, the most determined of the Apache nations, had no choice but to become part of either Mexico or the United States, they chose a third and completely unexpected path: to fight until the end. I will move to Canada, the gringos always claim, but they never do. I'd rather die, say the Mexicans, but then we all go on and accept the new state of things anyway. The Apaches said they weren't interested in integrating when the conquistadors made contact with them in 1610, and they kept saying no until the most celebrated band of Chiricahua warriors fit into a single train car that carried the last 27 of them out of Arizona. I don't know whether there's anything to be learned from such a decision, but I'm finding it so unsettling that I'm writing a book about it. And I thought about that a lot as I was reading this book, and what it meant And at least I was thinking things like the past is never really past, that you can erase parts of the past, but it doesn't go away. And what is our responsibility now? So this is a novel, though, as I said, and definitely a plot and character-rich novel. And it's written in three strands, or three strands of the plot. And one takes place in 1836, and a Mexican widow named Camila is abducted by Chiricahua Apache, and it chronicles their grueling trip to the Apache settlement. And you get to know the individual Chiricahua, you get to know Camila, and also in this strand there is a Mexican army officer who is tasked with getting together a motley crew, and they are very motley and interesting, and they are following the band so that they can rescue her. The second strand takes place in the 1880s, and it's the period shortly before and after Geronimo surrenders to the U.S. Army. And this section is very richly researched. All of it is. He spent many, many years just steeped in the literature, and particularly in memoirs of the people there. And he draws on all of that for this period in the 1880s. And then there's a third present-day strand when the narrator author, and it's very hard to separate them really. I mean, it's all Enrigue. And it is actually the true story of a family road trip to the lands that were Apacheria, just to get a sense of what's there and think about it. And so we also go on this family road trip, which, interesting aside, if you've read the Valerie Luiselli's The Lost Children Archive, glad I pulled that out of my brain, it is the same road trip that novel talks about. So these three strands are not written chronologically. They all kind of interlace with each other in really great ways that kind of speak to greater themes and each other. It is vividly, you are there kind of historical fiction, yet also in Alvaro Enrique's special sauce. He is always there with you, and occasionally pops up. He's kind of a co-reader with you, and he has a very thoughtful, conversational, intimate voice where he kind of mulls over things here and there, offers reflections and observations. And for me, it made the historical parts of it even more vivid. It didn't interrupt it for me in any way. And for the final thing, the final thing. So in my last observations about this book, I just want to read another paragraph that's actually the very first paragraph of the book. And it is just the most, one of the most creative ways to open a novel that I have found. And so, allow me to read. In the beginning, things appear. Writing is a defiant gesture we've long since gotten used to. Where there was nothing, somebody put something, and now everybody sees it. For example, the prairie, an endless expanse of tall grasses, the occasional smoke column signaling an encampment of the original masters of the land. There are no trees. They would never survive the wind, the torpor of summer, the swirling snows of winter. In the middle of the plain, let there be Spanish missionaries and a church. Then settlers, a 4-street town. Somebody decided this town was something, and they called it Llanos. Maybe because it has two faces, one turned toward the Spanish Empire from its raveling edge, the other towards the desert and its cactuses, Apacheria. So that just amazed me. He was like a painter, just taking a white canvas and slowly adding paint and building a scene, and that scene is the context for the story. And so I thought this was just wonderful. Alvaro Enrigue, I've heard interviews with him, and he always says, in the United States, they always call me an experimental kind of writer. And he said, but in Mexico, I'm really a pretty realist writer. And I guess South American literature in general is just so, or Hispanic literature in general is so rich with, and playful, that I guess we're not quite as used to it or something. But if you do want to read him, I will say that this book is about twice as long as the other two books that were translated in English. And actually I was afraid that being longer, maybe his special magic would not hold up. But boy, it sure does. But the other two that he's written are first Sudden Death, which I think I talked about in a different video, and also You Dreamed of Empires. And so you might want to start with either of them since they're a little shorter. Hi, it's future me. Past me forgot the most important thing. Why the title, Now I Surrender? It's part of a quote of Geronimo's surrender to the U.S. Army. Very terse and eloquent. He says, "Once I moved about like the wind, now I surrender to you, and that is all." And also, while I'm at it, just very little description of Geronimo. Geronimo is all turbulence. He's like nitroglycerin. You touch him and he explodes. All right, that's it. Back to regularly scheduled program. But what am I up to? I am up to my DNF. So my DNF was George Saunders' Vigil. And I DNF'd it on audio. And I love George Saunders, and one of my favorite books, I always say everything is my favorite book, but I have a lot of favorites, and that is Lincoln in the Bardo. And that was so different, so wonderful, so creative, and it was on audio. I loved the audio version because it was just a symphony of voices. I don't know, a cast of like at least 50, I would think. But what was weird with Vigil is he sort of took the same kind of theme. It was just so similar, and it's odd because not only has it already been done, but it's been done by him. And so in comparison, it just didn't grab me, and I feel like he has so much creativity, so much incredible brilliance that I want to read another novel by him, but I want him to let loose and not repeat what he's done before. So there's my pronouncement, which is worth a lot. What else do I want to do? I think that's it. I think this is the end. So this is when I say, thank you for being here. Let me know what you're reading. Let me know if you want to read any of these maybe, have any questions, comments, asides, ideas. Just as long as it's nice, So take care, be well, be good. Bye.